Software problems can result in costly repairs and production downtime for the organization. Therefore, it's important to have the right skills and tools to start the troubleshooting process. In this video, I'll explain how to troubleshoot some common software problems. So now let's examine some of the common software problems that you may encounter. And among the more common, certainly the inability for any user to log on. Now, there really can be an awful lot of things that are going to prevent a log on, but some of the common ones here are simply having insufficient privileges. One of the settings that's usually implemented in most environments is that regular users are not allowed to log on to servers. So they have to be granted that privilege. Now, if it's not, of course, somebody trying to log onto a server, there may still be desktops that have maybe important applications, and the ability to log onto it locally has been restricted. So you need to be aware of that. If it's just a matter of a user not being able to log on to their own individual workstation, this usually comes down to an incorrect password. People forget their passwords all the time, and of course they can be reset. But you need to be aware of that, and if they try too many times and fail, in most cases the account will lock itself so that it cannot be even attempted until somebody unlocks the account or it times out. If it's a name resolution issue, for example, in a Windows environment, if your DNS server goes down, you won't be able to resolve any names, and hence you won't be able to locate the servers that are responsible for authenticating your login. So there certainly can be a number of issues with respect to not being able to log on. Now, if you were able to log on successfully, but then you cannot access a particular resource, for example, a printer or a shared folder on a server, then we certainly should verify that server integrity to begin with. In other words, is the server up and running? Did it go down unexpectedly? And is it connected to the network? Things like that. Certainly verify the application ports are open. Somebody may have made a change to a firewall configuration and we can no longer access the application we're trying to get to. And of course, we can just examine the event logs of that system to see if anything has in fact been changed. Software problems can also result in some of these issues that may seem a little bit like hardware, but in most cases, we are talking about drivers, and drivers are, at the end of the day, still software. So you see a memory leak, which can be indicative of an incorrect or faulty driver. When an application simply does not release its memory when it shuts down, or if it continues to take up too much memory while it's running, that's known as a memory leak. So typically a faulty driver within the application or the hardware device that it relies on can cause that, and hopefully you can identify that with System Monitor to see which process is causing the problem. BSOD or BSOD actually stands for Blue Screen of Death, and this is something that has been happening in the Windows environment for quite some time. The system just instantly up and stops responding to everything and displays a completely blue screen with a bunch of really unintelligible writing on it for the most part. It doesn't really give you a lot of information. But in almost all cases, it's something to do, again, with hardware or drivers or the file system itself. Now, it could still be a corrupt page file or registry data or even faulty memory. But in my experience anyway, it has been most often due to hardware issues or, of course, the driver associated with that hardware. And if it's an operating system boot failure, certainly verify that the boot sequence is correct. So that's going into your BIOS settings. And again, that really still is software, but you just need to make sure that that is set correctly. And if necessary, you can maybe use some of the power on self-test beep codes to help identify the issue. And a lot of proprietary systems have coded configurations of LED lights as well to indicate where the problem is. And finally, some additional problems, just regular driver issues. You always need to make sure that your drivers are up to date. And if you did perform an update and it all of a sudden fails, then you do have the option in a lot of cases to roll back to the previous one. Windows, for example, does not delete the previous driver. So if you install a new one, it fails, you can simply revert or roll back to the old one and everything should be fine. Booting in safe mode is typically something that you need to do when you're trying to isolate a driver issue, because safe mode boots the computer with minimal configuration with respect to its services and drivers, so that hopefully you can isolate the one that's causing the problem. Runaway process can hopefully be detected with System Monitor, but this is a single executable or a service that has monopolized the CPU. So it, again, might be a driver or an application that simply might need an update or a hotfix if it's available. If that's not the problem, it certainly could be related to some kind of a malware-based application. And obviously, you need to just run a scan, make sure your system is clean. Your own task manager can certainly stop the process, but that doesn't necessarily remove it. So if you just reboot the system, it's likely to start again, or if you launch the application that caused it to launch in the first place, it may relaunch itself. So while you can detect it with those applications, you usually cannot remove it. So you need to either do a scan or find some kind of a fix, or possibly just completely remove that process from your system. So a lot of problems can arise with software. Like anything, you need to stay on top of it, and we'll see a few more problems coming up in the next demonstration.